I've been fortunate enough to do a lot and see a lot at Insomniac. I'm going into my 15th year. And that made blowing up the proverbial moon, changing our entire studio identity over the last several months, particularly challenging. Of all the things that I've been a part of at Insomniac, that was probably the most difficult. And the reason I'm here today is simply to share with you a process that was solidified over the last several months that helps me look at making tough decisions and making them with a little bit more confidence and a little bit more self-assuredness. And this comes from 20 plus years of making mistakes, 15 years almost at Insomniac, learning and growing and making mistakes. And hopefully I can save you a little bit of pain along the process as well. That would be my goal. So what I'm about to show you here is a very different way that we tell stories about ourselves now at Insomniac. I don't know how many of you guys have seen our recruitment videos in the past, pinballs, where we're dressed up in various costumes being silly. You can actually play that song in Rock Band. Crazy Ride, where Ted Price, our CEO, is literally singing and rocking out. One of our own Insomniacs is rapping. And then we go from that to this.
What will you imagine? What worlds will you create? What stories will you tell? What connections will you make? What will you accomplish? What will you change? What makes you proud? Where will your adventure lead you? At Insomniac, we are innovators. We are explorers. We are a force for good. We seek to create unforgettable experiences, and we passionately pursue being the best. This is our vision. What's yours?
So it's a little bit different than pithy pop videos imploring people to come work for us. And it was very polarizing inside the studio. But the truth is, this is who we've been for a long time at Insomniac. The challenge was sharing this vision with the world. And over the rebrand, we also focused on this recruitment video. We focused on overhauling our website. We became much more of a broadcast content creator. We have a live streaming set where we're live streaming our games and other folks' games 3 times a week, soon to be 5 times a week. We obviously took care of our employees with free stuff, because everybody loves free stuff. And we even made some fun cakes for, whoops, let's go back. We made some fun cakes for our friends in the media and some influencers, including this one that went out to Greg Miller that he live tweet ate, which was a lot of fun. Why'd we do it? Nobody was clamoring for us to change our tune, if you will, or change our logo and our identity. But we knew that our visuals weren't matching up with our vision. We knew that if our vision is to be a force for good and make a positive and lasting impression on people's lives, that the logo that we had was anchoring us in the past, where we have a different mindset for the future. What's your why? Before we focus on any hard decision that we have to make, we have to know why we're making that decision. Simon Sinek always says, why before what? It's one of the most popular YouTube talks or one of the most popular TED Talks you can find on the internet. It's about your destination. It's about understanding what your vision is and making sure that it matches with who you are and where you're going, not where you've been. In our past vision used to simply be, we want to make the kind of games that we want to play. And I bet for a lot of developers, for many of you in the room, for many of the folks outside, this may work. It worked for us for a long time. When you have a small team and everybody knows what we like to play, that can work. But now when you have close to 300 people like we do, we need to be a little bit more articulate in terms of exactly what we're talking about, why we're doing what we're doing, and how we can share that throughout the studio. So people in the past may have known us when they see that logo as having a top workplace culture. And the only thing I want to mention about that is I think it's valuable for every studio in the room. The way that we do it is the only awards that matter to us are the ones where we have employee anonymous surveys, so that we're not out campaigning for anything. We're not imploring our employees to vote for us, if you will. We want honest feedback so we can make ourselves better as a studio. It just so happens that by constantly going on that journey, our employees seem to be satisfied with our workplace environment, which is a good thing. And when they're not, we know we can fix it quickly. People in the past have thought we're all about console games, that maybe we dabble in mobile games, which we did over the past few years, that we dabble in VR, we dabble in browser games, and that when they see this logo, they think Spyro the Dragon, Ratchet and Clank. They think fun, cartoony. And we love those words, and we're not running from those words, but we're more than that. We have greater range and depth. If you've played Resistance, if you've played Sunset Overdrive, you've seen both sides of the spectrum. If you watch what we're doing on Spider-Man, hopefully you're seeing there's greater range there as well. VR is important to us, not just as something to dabble in, but as an important part of our future. And you'll see more about that as we go. And all of this leads to a mindset, an always exploring mindset. And if you think about a rebrand in those terms for us, if you think about the moon and what the moon used to mean, the moon used to be, the moon used to mean the future, probably more for our parents' generation and their parents' generation, but now we're talking about colonizing Mars. And if we're talking about that, and we're talking about spacecraft going beyond the solar system and exploring the outer reaches, like that's where we want to be too. We always want to be constantly experimenting. So that is our why, that's our North Star, that's our vision. Again, before we can make any tough decisions, what's your why? You need to know that. Your team needs to know that. Now, once you understand why, we can talk about how. We can talk about what. We can talk about skills. For me, going through the rebrand, the types of skills I thought I would need were not the ones that came into play. Far from it. I thought I was going to need user experience, to call upon my user experience skills to help build our website, or an editing eye to make a more compelling recruitment video, a design aesthetic to help with designing our logo. No, it wasn't about that. It was about what Seth Godin, who I consider a mentor, author of a ton of different books, Alt MBA course, somebody who you should read, can't recommend him enough. He talks about these soft skills as hard skills, the essential skills we need. I'm talking about empathy, I'm talking about grace, I'm talking about relatability, I'm talking about compassion, I'm talking about patience. These are the skills that help me through the tough moments, the toughest moments I face at Insomniac, beyond introducing community to a crusty development team, beyond conveying the idea that we should be content creators as much as game developers. This was the hardest project I embarked upon. These are the skills that helped me get through it. And if it all came down to like the crux of every struggle came down to the ability to be able to trust myself versus trusting other people. And the friction point is something that I like to call the doubt monster. In medical or scientific terms, people talk about this little space in your brain called the amygdala. Seth calls it the lizard brain. I call it the doubt monster. It's the little device in your head that was originally there at the dawn of humankind that protected us from saber-toothed tigers running across the savannah. Now it just tells us, don't do that thing that you're not sure about because you might be embarrassed on social media. Or what will people say? What will people think? What will my constituents think? And that's not good enough if we want to make bold decisions. We have to learn how to conquer the doubt monster. So I'm going to give you 3 scenarios during the rebrand that came up where I had to really focus on trusting myself versus trusting others and what that looked like. The first was the idea of the rebrand to begin with. And in short, a lot of folks don't realize that next year we turn 25 years old. And from a traditional marketing perspective, it's sort of like, well, you got to do something for 25 years. Why don't you just wait till then and rebrand? But that's old school thinking. It doesn't really matter, especially when people are whispering in the hallways that your logo feels a little long in the tooth. People are whispering that your website isn't optimized to be mobile friendly. Age is just a number, as we all know. So why are we clinging to it for something as important as a rebrand? So we ultimately decided after some deliberation that we needed to speed up that rebrand by 2 years, which is why we did it last year and not in a year from now. So the next step in the process is, after we understand our why, we need to think about our disposition, or more accurately, our predisposition. What beliefs are we holding on to? Are they rational beliefs? Are they rooted in old school thinking? When was the last time we challenged those beliefs? Very important. Second, this is the first time we saw what became the new Insomniac Games logo. We liked it, but we weren't sure why we liked it. We decided we like it so much, we're going to park it. That makes no sense. But it does if you understand the doubt monster. The doubt monster said, nobody's going to understand this. This is too much of a departure. What does this say about exploration? What does this say about an always experimenting mindset? Don't do it. So we went here for 7 rounds of iteration. See, get it? Get it? There's a big circle with a spaceship and stars and stuff. It says explore. Get it? No. Like, this is the example. This is like the perfect example of tepid thinking, listening to the doubt monster. And the artist that we worked with on this project was a guy named Corey Schmitz, who, I don't know if you guys know his work, but he's behind Infinity Ward's rebrand. He helped out with numerous other studio rebrands, including Sucker Punch, Sony Santa Monica Studios. I could feel him getting disengaged in this process because we didn't listen to him and we were playing it safe. There's nothing like getting a PowerPoint presentation, not an email, but a PowerPoint presentation from somebody on your own team saying, dude, we are making a huge mistake, slam on the brakes. Talk about the doubt monster, like when a member of your own team comes up and says, you are screwing it up, man, you better be careful. Like, deep down, I knew he was right, and this was the impetus and the kick in the ass that we all needed to say, hey, let's get back to being bold. Let's get back to conquering our own doubt monster. But it can get away from you just like that, and the warning sign is playing it safe. This is where we wound up, because we were able to go back, we were able to think about what is it about that logo that we liked. And we realized that it was this double crescent moon, which symbolizes one planet behind us, another planet ahead, and most important, what looks like a portal in the middle to honor our fans, because our fans view us differently, whether it's because they love Spyro the Dragon or Ratchet and Clank or Resistance Fall of Man or now Spider-Man, Sunset Overdrive, any of these games. Like, we get to honor them through showing that it is about them and that how we view ourselves is malleable and flexible, and that is part of an always exploring mindset. We never would have got there if it wasn't for patience, though. If we had been rash in our judgment, if we had said, I don't understand that first logo, let's play it safe, let's quickly bang something out. We wanted to be out for our rebrand by E3 last year because the most important moment in our studio's history was going to be on that stage at the Sony press conference for the Spider-Man reveal demo that we had at the time. If we didn't have patience, we would have missed our mark. We would have created a brand identity that didn't match truly who we were, and we would have been living a lie. We would have been talking about always exploring and always experimenting, but not living it. Finally, the third big moment for us. This is a picture of our broadcast studio. Inside of our game development studio. It looks like a nice production set that you go off-site to. No, we made this ourselves. A guy on my own team built this. He built the whole lighting. I'm super proud of it, and you can catch us soon 5 days a week on Twitch, like I mentioned. That studio didn't have the logo on it at first. It didn't have it in the middle. And this became, as small as it seems, it became a fighting point for the team. We were butting heads a little bit. My team had just built this Ferrari. They wanted to get it out on the track. I realized what we need is a holistic brand launch. We need to be able to show off this logo on the back wall and have people understand every time they tune into us who we are, what we're about, and where we're going. And the reason that we were able to come to an agreement was through empathy. It wasn't a straight argument. It was more of a conversation of understanding where they were coming from and taking the time to seek first to understand before trying to be understood. So make sure, once you know what your disposition is, as we get into this idea of trusting ourselves and trusting other people, you've got to be able to empathize with other folks. You need to be able to ask yourself, what am I afraid of? How important is this decision? And at the same time, you need to understand context. You need to understand the bigger picture of what's it all about. What is my team thinking and feeling? You need to be able to crawl into their headspace. We haven't always been able to do that. You may have seen some quotes in the press recently from me where we had a challenging time in between Resistance Fall of Man and Resistance 2. And the reason why was the doubt monster won. The short version is, even with an established studio, it can happen to all of us. We listen to outside feedback about what people liked about our games. The games we're playing influence us. We're not clear on what our vision is. The doubt monster looms large, and we make a decision that ultimately may hurt sales because we didn't stick to our guns. So when we took apart this logo internally, I knew it was going to be polarizing. But I was armed with a better ability to deliberate, which helped me herd cats a little bit more effectively. I had 11 different people I had to report into to help bring this rebrand to life. But consensus building, one-on-one, not just hiding behind an email, but literally getting up and being in their space, talking with them about what they were seeing and feeling on their terms, talking to artists with more open-ended questions, talking with programmers a little bit more linearly, and speaking on their terms with their language helped us make better, smarter decisions and reach the critical consensus that we needed. Ultimately, what we're talking about, putting this all together, is that this is about the dance with doubt, okay? And the dance with doubt, because we're at a game conference, needs to be a compulsion loop. But because I'm a marketer, it has to have alliteration. So I'm bringing both worlds together. What I'm really saying here, to wrap things up in a bow, is you've got a dilemma. You need to understand what your destination is. You need to understand what your disposition is and how strongly you hold on to that. And then when you're deliberating, it's about building consensus the right way. One person at a time, one relationship at a time. Understanding, taking the time to appreciate context and having that empathy. And then you can make decisions that much easier. And when you do that, the dance with doubt can be filled with joy. The dance with doubt can help turn your studio into a broadcast center. The dance with doubt can help you grow your Twitch base by 30% in 3 months. We never would have done it if we didn't have the guts to make difficult decisions. I'm going to skip this video coming up in the interest of time. This is just an example of Twitch blowing up with one of our Spider-Man feeds. Where does that leave us? Where does that leave us today? I don't know. I can tell you, because we're always exploring, we might be having this conversation in another 10 to 15 years. I can tell you that so far, because we did a good job of communicating to the public and consistently communicating why we're doing what we're doing, we're not seeing any negative chatter or feedback about our rebrand process. Internally, I'm seeing that the tide has turned in terms of the polarization of blowing up our full moon icon into something completely different. It's growing on them. The more people hear and understand and internalize what this means as a studio for us, the more they accept it, the more they believe it, and the more they share it with other people. And it becomes infectious. And it's helping us with recruiting because it's an exciting story to be able to tell when your vision matches your visuals. So I hope that each of you embraces this idea that you can dance with doubt, that it's not just a gut decision. You can put a process into place to help you make smarter choices. And when you do, I hope you experience and enjoy the same exhilaration with your journey as I had with mine, and that you can approach future decisions, whether it's for a rebrand or redesigning a character or a level or coming up with a new idea for a game franchise, and look at that in a completely different way. Thank you.
Well, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Thank you. That was really, really interesting to take us inside the company. As you went through that process and you had the naysayers and like that one email and all that.
Yeah.
Have you guys taken this sort of process that you've actually created some documentation for in a way? Have you taken that out to any other decisions?
Yes. So good question. And I'm actually meeting with the company next week, where I'm kind of like I haven't presented this inside the studio. Like this is just something that I've shared with my team and talked about kind of like with Ted, our CEO, and I've talked about with a few other folks. But yeah, I would like to work on formalizing this throughout the studio, and that's something that I'm super excited about. That's like one of my big projects for the year.
Oh, hi. There's a microphone. How did you deal with pushback from people in the studio who maybe weren't quite understanding why the rebrand needed to happen?
So one great device we have inside the studio is that Ted, our CEO and founder, does Ask Me Anythings every single day. And so if I'm not personally answering those questions myself, I will actually encourage them to ask Ted in an AMA format, so then I can address it for the entire company. Because if one person has that question, it's likely 5 or 6 people do, and they're just not saying it. So I approached it head on, and instead of just trying to fight it, I would say that's a really good point, and we're struggling with whatever that issue might be. I mean, this rebrand was super polarizing inside the studio. Like, if I were to give an expanded version of this talk, the big thing I would probably add that I didn't was just how much I probably screwed up from an internal perspective, because we spent so much time focusing on the external message that you have to spend even more time internally walking people through the process. Like, we waited till the last minute to show that recruiting video. We didn't show the iterative versions of the logo as much as we could. And those are lessons that if I could do it all over again, I would change.
Will you make the slides available? You will.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and this has just helped me in life, because, you know, as I never formalized this process in my head, but now that I think about it daily, what it really helps me do is remove the emotion out of uncertainty and insecurity. And when you remove emotion, you're letting the air out of the doubt monster balloon, right? Because doubt thrives on uncertainty, because uncertainty leads to fear. But if you can diffuse fear, then you can approach things with a little bit more of a rational mind. And when you do that and you can think through the process, then you can make that better decision, because it's more fact-based, it's more evidence-based, it's experience-based.
How did you diffuse fear? How did you like actively, mindfully do that? I guess like internally on a day-to-day?
Before I formalize this process, the best thing I can tell you, my personal coping mechanism, is I swim, bike, and run a lot. So in my other life, I am a triathlon coach. And so my form of meditation is active meditation. And it helps me to just get away from work and to just like not listen to music, be empty with myself, and just let thoughts go through me. And then somewhere along the way, like the answer becomes evident whether I like it or not. Then we all have a choice of, when we know what the right thing to do is, do we have the guts to do the right thing? That's a different question. So that's what works for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.